In this video, I'm going to take a deeper look into the things that Tony Northrup said, which turned out to be lies in his Truth About Fujifilm video, tell you the truth about Fujifilm and their roadmap and the direction the company is going, as well as explain why I believe Tony thought it was in his best interest to not only make stuff up, but to not watch an event from Fujifilm and then make up like he actually watched the event. Because that was either misinformed or he was clearly lying, dog. So the first thing we're going to talk about is this. Fujifilm is not making smartphones. They're not making interchangeable smartphones with lenses or Instax printers on the backs, whatever Tony said. Tony Northrup doesn't really know much about marketing. Tony is one of those people that you get a little bit of information about one thing and you become a subject matter expert for every single department in that. Just because I know what I played Madden, I know what a cover 4, what a cover 2 high, what Tampa 2 and things like that is, does not mean that I can go into an NFL film room and tell a defensive staff like, hey, this is what you guys need to run. Same thing for Tony. He made some references about Fujifilm and their market share, and Tony actually gave no numbers to back that up. He just made a whole bunch of generalizations saying that Fujifilm really didn't have, like, the market share was getting smaller and smaller, mirrorless, which makes sense, and the fact that less people are going to be going with APS-C, and Tony had no numbers to back that up because he pulled them out of his ass. What Tony doesn't understand is even though Fujifilm doesn't have a grasp, they're not number one, they don't have 20, 30, 40% of the mirrorless body market, having a little bit of something is better than having all of nothing. And again, when you make stuff up and you don't really know what you're talking about, you end up saying things like that sound really stupid. So Fujifilm's not going anywhere. And let's talk about the number one reason why we have proof they're not going anywhere. And that is the fact that they announced a 40 megapixel backside illuminated sensor. Now, when it comes to a backside illuminated sensor and the fact that it's stacked, that gives me a couple things. Number one, what is a backside stacked illuminated sensor? So when you talk about a backside illuminated sensor, the easiest way I can tell you is that they take a regular sensor, they're stripping down the silicon for it and everything around it, the little, basically like the fiber around it, and they're removing the wires and the things that go and read the data from behind that sensor so that it's able to gather light from the back as well. So if you think of it as this little SD card, imagine all the little prongs and things like that are the wire and the data and the writing on this part. That is all the wiring and everything it takes to pull the information from the sensor. Camera companies, starting with Sony, I believe, have created to where they're able to move all the prongs and wiring away from the back, so now they can use a sensor to also gather light from the back, which helps with low light capability. What that's able to do is it's able to make faster readout times, faster processing, faster data, and it's also enables you to put a processor within the sensor. And because of that, it's great for sports. You look at the Sony A1, you look at maybe even, I believe, the A9 and the way they're able to read out and how there's limited warp when it comes to their mechanical or their electronic shutter. When you're shooting sports, it looks just like a mechanical shutter. No blackout, things like that. The things that Sony has been fantastic at is what now Fujifilm will be able to do in an APS-C size sensor. If someone's going to invest that much in that technology and pay Sony to do that for them, why do you think that they would be leaving the system or they would be leaving the camera market? And again, this is where my theory that Tony didn't watch the event. Tony looked at B&H and saw, because Fujifilm, if you guys watched the event, they didn't announce the X-T30 Mark II and they didn't announce the X-T3WW. So who did announce the X-T3WW and the X-T30 Mark II? B&H, Adorama, and Amazon accidentally posted these things before they were supposed to, just those cameras, because they didn't have the lenses to post already. Tony looked before the event, saw those, and made his video, which is why he didn't know anything about the lenses that resolve up to 40 megapixels or the 40 megapixel sensor, which would tell him Fujifilm is going to come out with a 40 megapixel camera. Tony Northrup lied to you guys about everything. He looked at the specs for the GFX because the bodies were out before the event. The information on the bodies were already out. That's why he didn't really mention any of the GFX lenses. That's why he didn't mention that the GFX lenses are from the mouth of Fujifilm themselves are going to be geared towards looking large format, and the fact that they are going to go for faster lenses in their medium format systems. Tony Northrup lied. You can't really blame the guy though, because it's kind of our fault because we continue to click and watch this man. But at the same time, Tony Northrup doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to Fujifilm. Tony Northrup has always lied about Fujifilm. And not only that, Tony Northrup has always lied about every other camera manufacturer who doesn't vibe with him. He lied about Sony and how fast they they were until I don't know if things started being sent to him or whenever the A7R4 came out and he decided to switch. That's whenever the focus for Sony actually was good enough for a professional. Before then, it was still, he was holding on his high horse of, I'm still going to use my Nikons. Remember, Tony had a beef with Canon and exactly what they were doing with their focusing system. And remember the whole 4K thing to where you have to future-proof your Canon or camera, and because Canon wasn't doing that, Canon was going to fall out of grace with people because it's not about photography anymore. It's about videography. We've given Tony the idea that he's a camera expert when he's not. He's a reviewer who talks very, very loud and who puts out a lot of information and does clickbait, so we think he has information about things that he doesn't. Tony doesn't really know that much about these cameras. He spends a week with them and sends them back. So now I want to talk about what the stacked sensor means for Fujifilm. First off, faster readouts, which is how they're able to do 8K video. This potentially means they're going to be able to do 4K 120, no doubt about that. They're going to be doing oversampled 4K, which is going to be great for your resolution. But whenever it comes to photography, you're going to have faster read times, which means less buffer, less RAW. You may be able to get a CFast card in there. You're also going to be able to do a lot better for sports and wedding photography because catching those moments now with the electronic shutter at 24 frames per second is going to be a breeze because guess what? It's not going to mess up your image. You're not going to have any blackout, and it's going to have such a good buffer time because you're going to be able to put a processor on that backside illuminated stacked sensor, and the readout's going to be so great, and you're going to be getting so much information that your images at higher ISOs and your images with any kind of movement in them aren't going to warp themselves. You're not going to have that rolling shutter effect in your photos, and that is a huge, huge, huge deal. The last thing that Tony didn't cover because he didn't do any studying, didn't do any research, and didn't watch the video before he made his stupid ass video is this. Fujifilm just released a whole bunch of lenses. This whole reason for their event was to release lenses. It has nothing to do with bodies. The bodies weren't the big deal. The 50S Mark II was not the big deal. They just released another body. But when it comes to the glass, Fujifilm said verbatim, their GFX glass, it's all geared towards giving a large format look. And what does that mean? That means this. They're going to be gearing up to create faster glass, amazing resolution that can resolve above the 100 megapixel images of their GFX 100S. They're going to be making glass that is probably going to be even a little bit bigger, but for the reason that they make all glass, every manufacturer right now, mirrorless, is making the glass so big is because you want more of the center of the lens to actually be in the focus area versus the outside. It reduces fringing and chromatic aberration. That's what they're going for. That is a big deal. Not only does it mean that the glasses coming out, the 1.7, the f2, and things like that are going to now be the standard and the norm with everyone crying about their glasses isn't fast. One quick side note, if you're talking about depth of field and things like that and about the speed of the glass and comparing it between, oh, well, Canon has a 1.2 and the best that the medium format from Fujifilm can do is a 1.7, let me remind you, you don't know shit about medium format and that tells me you've never shot it, you shouldn't give your opinion. The other thing is that Fujifilm released two lenses, the 23 1.4 and the 33 1.4, that can resolve images up to 40 megapixels. That is a huge deal because that tells us one thing. All Fuji glass from here on out will resolve 40 megapixels because Fujifilm will not only bring a 40 megapixel stacked backside illuminated sensor to the X-H2, but they're most likely going to bring that to the X Pro lineup. They're most likely going to bring that to the XT lineup. And that means that we're either going to get a single backside illuminated sensor in all the cameras, the X100 line, a backside illuminated sensor that's 40 megapixels on the XE line, maybe even the XT, you know, if they bring back the 30-ish line or anything like that. Why would you create bodies that are still going to be 26 megapixels and use the exact same sensor if, and I mean seriously, if you're going to invest in this kind of R&D for these new lenses? So it's pretty simple to me. We're going to get 40 megapixel sensors across the board potentially from all Fujifilm cameras in their X lineup, the XT, the XE, the X Pro, the X100, the XH, period. We're going to be getting amazing, the XS, 40 megapixel sensors, And then in the ones that are supposed to be the flagships, the bigger ones, the XT, the XH, and the X Pro, we're going to get backside illuminated sensors that are stacked. And even more than that, this tells me, because the space they're going to have to just make up to do the stacked backside illuminated sensor, the X Pro 4 is most likely going to have IBIS. Again, this isn't the fault of Tony Northrup. We've built him up. We've made him seem like he's more than he is. But I just wanted to clear up these things because Tony lied. Tony made up stuff. Tony has been lying to you. Tony doesn't watch these events. Tony looks at B&H, he looks at specs, and he gives his information and everything from these events. I stopped watching Tony Northrup about 4 to 5 years ago for this exact thing, and every other time someone sends me a video and I end up watching it, it ends up being a whole bunch of propaganda and fluff. The video that I made yesterday calling out Tony Northrup for lying about everything that went on and ignoring things, every single thing that I pulled up, whether it was one of his videos to get a screen grab of it so I could put it whenever I said he was doing propaganda, etc., etc., every single one of those are clickbait articles. That's all Tony is. Tony is the TMZ, the CNN, the Fox News of the camera manufacturer, or of the camera sphere. If I were you, sincerely, and you're looking for someone to actually, look at, who gives you good camera reviews and tell you information, there are 5 people that I would actually watch. And it doesn't matter what camera you're looking at, these people give you information. If you're on the videography side as well, these will also help you. Number 1 is Matthias Berling. Just watch a Matthias Berling video. He's going to help you out. He's going to get you out of your head and be able to tell you the correct things you need to hear in order to make a camera purchase, a lens purchase, or a decision on if you're keeping something or not. The second person is Gerald Undone. Very simple, very easy. Gerald is a guy that you can go to. He knows exactly what he's talking about. There's no fluff. There's nothing extra. Gerald Undone is fantastic. The third one is DP Review. Now, while sometimes they don't really help out too much because they're given too much bias, they give you all the specs and the rundown, and they give you real world views of all these images. The fourth one, which may seem a little bit harsh or weird, but Jared Polin. Jared Polin, the reason he gives you the raw files to download and mess with yourself, that way you can see basically what you're getting out of certain lenses and out of certain bodies and what it's processing. And he's giving you all the information so that you can make a decision when you pull it and start editing yourself, if there is a difference between the resolution, between the fill, the color, the bokeh, etc., etc., of anything you have. And the last person, if you're a Fujifilm person, I would check out Dorian Coleman. Dorian is just someone, he doesn't make a whole bunch of videos, so you really have to watch. It's kind of like he's releasing like Yeezy Season 19 or whatever the world it is. But at the same time, he's someone that if you're interested in street photography, or if you're interested in real world case reviews of certain lenses and things like that, he takes his time with the reviews. He's not pushing something out just so you can get it, but he's also going to give you an in-depth look, going to show you photos and tell you exactly how it felt with him. So if you're the kind of person that cares about ergonomics, size, weight, and the look and the feel of something while you're shooting, as well as the resolution, the capability of a camera, of a lens, he's the guy to go to. You don't have to just click on Tony and Chelsea because they have a whole bunch of followers. And I'm not telling you to unfollow them, but I'm telling you to be aware, because that lies. So have a good one.